Welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee. Welcome to the latest show. I had a guest who canceled out on me, but I was able to corral a compatriot of mine, and we're going to chat today. I got a couple of videos. I don't know whether or not I got the videos to my producer late, but I hope we're able to air those videos. As always, our objective here is to educate and enlighten, hopefully. And me, I consider myself to be a lifelong learner, so I'm always trying to learn. I enjoy jousting on Facebook. I enjoy arguing with people, not arguing with people, but exploring, because I'm trying to learn and understand people and understand opinions. Now, Kennard Wright, you may know him. He's been on my show several times. He and I agree on some things. We disagree on others.
Oh, really?
And Kennard is a person who I respect very much. I respect his intelligence. And I can almost count on him to participate. I know he always has something wise and instructive to say. At least I get something from it. And that's why I'm always flattered when he comes on. Welcome, Kennard.
Hey, welcome. You're so gracious. I might have gotten a cavity during that piece. But yeah.
Again, this week, Kennard and I were talking before we came on air, and some people don't like to talk politics. A long time ago, there was someone I was dating, and her dad was a barber, black cowboy barber in Beaumont, and he says to me, two things not to discuss with people: politics and religion. And to me, those are the two very things to discuss, to try to get to know someone and try to get to understand and grow and expand your own boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's what it's about: life and learning and growing. Now, I shared an article on Facebook. I posted an article. No, someone sent me an article. My friend Isom Berry sent me an article that said, more black women realize that the Democratic Party this is their title, is full of shit.
Excrement.
New polls found. I'm not going through all that, man. That political correctness, soft sell stuff. The article says more black women realize that the Democratic Party is full of shit.
Okay, so that's 5 of them or 10 of them.
Okay. Said new poll finds. And I thought the article was interesting for several reasons. It talks about something about what Fannie Lou Hamer said back a long time ago. And it kind of underscored, there was an event here Saturday called Mastering Manhood. And I saw my last guest, Brian Gaines, was there.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised I didn't see you there, but
I can tell you why.
it's up your alley. To me, it was up your alley because it was about mastering manhood. It was sponsored by I think Man and Me, Isaac Rowe and his group, and their focus is the black man. And when I saw this article, it said about black women realize the Democratic Party is full of excrement, as you would say, new poll finds. It kind of underscored and kind of emphasized in a left-handed kind of way the real challenge I think is for the black community, which is manhood, men. And it kind of looks like black women are taking the lead rather than men, which to me is a challenge. It's a challenge, which is what the conference was about, I believe. Mm-hmm. Because Man and Me has these monthly meetings they're kind of like small group meetings of where guys talk about what it's like to be guy, where guys have guy talk. Okay. And he has events also where it's just straight man talk. Sometimes women are included, sometimes not. This deal Saturday was kind of like a man-only thing. Mm-hmm. You say you didn't get to go?
No, I might be a bit biased. I've lived in Austin 20 years, and I've gone to so many things where we talk about something and like a year later or 6 months later or whatever time, it doesn't seem to amount to anything. And I guess in a way it's like somewhat a bit of frustration because you get tired of going to something and nothing ever comes out of it and all we do is talk. Because like most people, we're good at talking. We're good at talking about problems. We're not good at solving. We're good at talking about being a good father, but you're not committed to your family or committed to the kids in your neighborhood or whatever. And so sometimes people, even a decent person, hopefully a decent person like me, you get a little tired. I'm not going to another meeting that I'm not sure it's going to produce nothing. I want to see a result. I want to see something because we go and we talk, but we don't change nothing.
Uh-huh. It's a lot of talk. Austin, you mentioned you lived in Austin for 20 years?
24 years.
24?
That's 20 years longer than what I ever anticipated, but yes, 24. 20 something.
You went to grad school here, right?
Yes, to the LBJ School, Public Affairs.
And that was after going to Morris Brown?
I went to a historically black college, and I came to UT, and it's just Austin is very progressive in language, but not necessarily progressive like many cities like Baltimore and Atlanta in policies. And so people don't expand, people don't really, the system is not always helpful as it should be or as it could be. Neither are we as helpful as we should be or could be.
Well, I didn't learn. I didn't know Austin at all. I had never been to Austin before. I had never been to Austin before, but I had to learn Austin. I did have the opportunity to serve on the African American Resource Advisory Commission for the city.
How was that?
That was interesting. I'm trying to.
That's very diplomatic.
I had asked, but it was interesting because I didn't know much about Austin, and I was nominated to the commission by the one of two Republicans sitting on the council. And so coming into on the commission as a Republican who happens to be black, that in and of itself was interesting because they look at you funny.
What name did they call you first?
I didn't call me on that. I would knock shit out of them.
Well, no, they
Anyway.
did. Then you go over your words again. You better not call some radio stations. They wouldn't let you on.
Now, I've been on KZI. I was on KT show
Oh, really?
for an hour. You remember when I was on there?
Yeah, I listened to him the other day. Talking about the hurricanes.
Anyway, I got a couple of clips that I'd like to show. If we get once we get a clip up, it's a clip on actually Malcolm X.
Oh, that's the one I told you about.
One clip about
That's the one I told you
One
about.
clip about Malcolm X and another one Muhammad Ali.
But being friendly and being a friend, I think, are two different things. I think there are many whites who act friendly, acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate.
I'd like to point out, though, that...
And I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. I'm suspicious of whites who join Negroes and always have to be in the lead, who always have to be the head, who always have to be at the top in Negro organizations. Those whites who really have the interest of blacks at heart, let them give some advice to some Negroes and stand on the sideline. But don't join the organization and then get at the head of it and pose as a friend of Negroes.
today you could point to a large number of Negro leaders who have consistently betrayed Negroes in a whole host of areas.
They aren't really Negro leaders. These are puppets that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. These are parrots that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. You can't name me a Negro leader who has been betrayed Negroes, who has not been endorsed, sanctioned, subsidized, and supported by the white liberals.
You seen that video clip before, haven't you, Kennard?
Yes, he said that on at least 3 or 4 different occasions that I've seen. He even debated a group of people from SNCC and the NAACP about more or less about the same thing. And yes, I have. I guess is a short answer.
Is it true and accurate in your opinion? Partially, partially
I
not?
guess I could say as a political science major, but yeah, it is true to some extent, or to a large extent, because if you think about what's going on today, Soros, Clinton, or whatever, and it's not to say or whomever is that, basically you have people trying to influence us who don't represent us, and in the current political system that we have, most of the people involved are co-opted. And so just because someone says something that may sound nice to you doesn't mean they're on your side. Because even another instance, Malcolm said, don't trust a white liberal. And he went on to talk about white conservatives, but he said particularly, and he's emphasized repeatedly, just don't trust them because their interest is not aligned with ours. Or like I had a conversation, like I told you this weekend, with a friend of mine who's a very staunch, associate rather, who's very staunch Mexican-American. They're like, yeah, you know, we got all this out of Obama. And I was like, well, you know, if you're black, the only thing you got was sentencing guidelines. And I'm not saying anything too bad about the former president, just that many of our leaders are co-opted by the system, by the Democratic Party, and we haven't gotten anything since the Voting Rights Act, and even that wasn't technically just solely a Democratic item. So people are basically controlled and manipulated on all sides and liberals are no different.
I don't know. I'm not sure. When I I look at things from the standpoint of life, and viewing life sometimes as a chess game, it's nice to know where the pieces are and what they do. Now, I don't put a lot of value in someone liking me. That's nice, but I'd rather be respected than be liked. Because I think that lasts longer, and it's more reliable than just somebody like me. And, you know, there's an old Temptations record called "Smiling Faces." Sometimes they don't tell the truth. And to me, there's simple things like that we as a people in a collective sense tend to forget. And it's like we're being lulled to sleep. Oh, he's my friend. I remember when I was in college. Now, I had one of my more fulfilling experiences with the man who was supposedly the most racist professor on campus. I had fun with him. To my knowledge, I was told, I understand that I was the only black person to ever get an A from him. And he actually, Dr. Norman Pollock, he led the opposition to black studies on the campus.
Where's that at?
He led the opposition at Denison University.
Okay.
And I took him my last semester of my senior year when I had sworn to the world I was going to get straight A's. And they told me I couldn't get straight A's because I had Pollock. And Pollock he taught contemporary African history and politics, which was interesting in and of itself. Very colonialist, racist-minded point of view, and that's fine. That's him. But my thing was, you know, I'm not going to change a 65-year-old man. I'm there to get an A. That was the point for me. And so I never argued with him. And I did get an A, by the way. And what happened was, when we had the final exam, he said, you can write on one of 3 questions for the prescribed period. And I had studied this man during the course of the course. And I never argued with him or anything. Richard Dinkins and I, Richard's appeals court judge in Tennessee now. We never argued with him. And halfway through the semester, he started inviting us over to his house on Sunday to eat dinner and get drunk and look at slides. And
Okay.
he had apparently had traveled along what was called the Great Trek, taking slides. You know, he makes little nasty comments and all that kind of thing. And so it came time. I had an A average. It came time for the final. He said, you can write on one of 3 questions for the prescribed period. And he says, if any of you should choose to answer a question on South Africa, and if you include anything of your personal opinion in your answer, I can guarantee you that you will get no higher than a D in this course. And me being me, I didn't even read the other questions. And I just thought to myself, oh, yeah? Because I knew he was going to come down that street because he had to. He kind of like had to. He had to try to get Dink or I to react and respond so he could put it to us, right? And I remember the question. And so I answered the question from the perspective of competing claims to the land. And I aced him, right? And so it was before after grades out, before graduation, he's running around campus looking for me, and I was hiding from him because I was 21 years old. I was just a guy having fun trying to get my A's, right? And he was hunting for me, and I found out later, I was in law school at the time, when Dean Gibbons called me. I was at SMU Law School. He called me, he says, Michael, what did you do to Dr. Pollock? I said, nothing. I know I pulled a few stunts in my time. And what happened was Dr. Pollock had dropped his opposition to Black Studies program to teach in the Black Studies department. And then Gibbons says, did you know that Dr. Pollock was looking for you? He wanted to write a recommendation for you to go to law school. I said, I'd already taken care of that. But apparently something happened to him. I just wanted to get my A, you know. That was my program. Whatever his program was, that's his. And my thing is, when you're dealing with people who supposedly are racist and don't like you, the thing is to have the courage and the strength to engage them, not react to them, because it is not our responsibility as humans to try to change other humans. That's God's business. That's the way I see it.
Mm.
But God can work through you if you can muster up the strength to deal with whatever it is He puts before you, rather than just reacting all the time. Sometimes it's better to act than react.
Mm.
But when I think about what happened in my life and dealing with conservatives and so-called racists and so-called liberals and all that, I really don't care for you whether you like me or not.
Mm.
To me, it's a man thing, or a human thing, a person thing, to engage other people on whatever terms exist.
Mm.
And you can't always dictate those terms. But
True.
you take that situation and try to obtain the best results you can for all concerned.
Okay, that makes sense.
And to me, dealing with politics, it was fun to me.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It was fun.
But most people are afraid of challenges. Most people are afraid to discuss ideas that aren't comfortable. I've seen that at the lunchroom at work today, seen it over the weekend. Most people, but the flip side is what you said. I had a conversation on Saturday with a guy who I'm taking a class from, and we believe differently. But we talked about, like, Pollock, the situation in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. We talked about faith a little bit, and some things are really divergent. But I guess the point is that on the one hand, I talked to some people this weekend who maybe are more than I'd like to admit, that do not want to talk about anything different politically. Even black people that do not want to look from more than one perspective at what we have going on. But there's some hope somewhere, because then I talked to someone who's completely opposite on me in many ways, and we just had a discussion. And we just talked about the different issues, Puerto Rico, policy, faith. And he was like, well, I believe I'm a Christian, but I believe there's more than one way to Jesus. I said, well, I can disagree, but that doesn't mean I have to disrespect. And see, well, what we got now is if we disagree, they're going to put the smash on you verbally or whatever, because there's no real desire to have a discussion. There's no real desire to understand another viewpoint. Even had that at lunch today at work, and somebody asked me about police brutality versus what I think, and I was like, well, yeah, you can change the way police are trained because they're militarized. That's one way you could address that. But I was like, well, what about all these black folk that kill us? And the lady just looked at me like, oh, what are you talking about? And I basically said, I agree that that's the issue, police brutality. I've offered you a solution towards that, but the only thing she really wanted to talk about, she only wanted to talk about that subject. She only wanted to talk about it in one way, and that's the problem that we have as a nation, and sometimes what we have as a people. There's no longer Garvey versus another leader, or Du Bois versus Washington, or Booker T versus Frederick Douglass, or whatever. It's only this way or no way. And that makes us very kind of monolithic. And frankly, that makes us, when we get so emotional, that makes us susceptible to what you're saying here, which is to be manipulated by given any party. Because once they got you upset, you're just a pawn. And you move a rook over here. You moved your bishop over here, you moved your king in an L or whatever. Once you're emotional, once you become very monolithic, as you keep on being predictable in regards to how you operate or think politically, economically, or socially, or politically or economically, for instance, you're a mark. And the fact of it is, if we talk about enslavement and stuff, right? Sorry, getting off a little bit. They talk about enslavement. Well, if you believe this, you're a house, blah, blah, blah. No, if you understand enslavement, you understand the tactics that people have used, and the tactics that they're using on the left, sometimes the right, let's say maybe more so on the left, they're straight out of the master. It's like KRS-One, he had a song, he says, officer, 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 overseer, and he basically tries to point out how the system in place is sometimes used to lessen people, to manipulate people. And when people become monolithic, when we as black people or as a nation cannot have a discussion about the policy going on, and as opposed to the fact that the president sometimes is immature, we're lost. Because once we get emotional, you're lost, and that's not going to benefit us.
I have a baby brother who has a PhD in adult education. I think his master's degree is in psychology. One of my older brothers has a PhD in educational psychology, and they tell me that there's such a thing as emotional hijacking and all this kind of thing, and fight or flight, which is when you confront, which is when a person is confronted with information that's contrary to what they have accepted as believing. They either fight it or they run. They either fight against it or they run from it. And to me, it kind of underscores a problem in our community, which is thought. We need to think for ourselves and engage other and contrary information and disagree without becoming disagreeable.
Yeah.
But what happens frequently in much discussion is you start name calling and things, doing anti-thought things.
And you become the very epitome of a slave mentality when you start calling out somebody out of their name, calling them a jigaboo or some other name. These are the phrases, these are the methods that they used historically to manipulate us. And I'm not saying all of them are bad. I don't think most white people are bad, right? But the fact that, like you're saying, in terms of political sense, if you just get them a little upset, well, yeah, the president is this, or somebody said this, and somebody did that. While they're doing that, while they got you upset and emotional, you're not understanding the dichotomy of any issue. You're not understanding that while they're sitting here looking at him, they're doing like a 3-card Monte. They're moving stuff around and shifting it away. They're stealing a line from you over here. You're looking at the president, and they ain't done nothing for you or any other way. I guess my point is like that emotional maturity. We, as black people, for instance, for several hundred years, 300-400 years, understood the ploys that were utilized to divide us to some extent. We had methods against that. We had solidarity. We had unity. You had very more hands-on people like Booker T. You got to pull yourself up. And then you had someone like W.B., the talented 10th and all this and that. And there was this dichotomy, and you could have that. And there wasn't nobody like calling me a house, act like I just ain't got no sense, calling me a crazy name. Whereas now, there's this divergence. And when that divergence happens, I'm saying it again and again, that's where we get jacked. That's where you get manipulated. I don't need to have, this is very simple. And Malcolm said it too, or alluded to it several times. He said, you know what? And this is a paraphrase, but go look it up. It's on YouTube. It's very easy to find. He said, hey, you go ahead. You don't trust nobody necessarily. He said, you take them the issues. You tell them what you need solved. And you respond to whoever, ooh, look, I'm sleepy. I look really sleepy, don't I? That's really bad. But anyway, and you respond or you support the one that helps you. So if you do that from a comparatively speaking, you were going looking like my friend this week and say, well, the Democrats have done a lot for us. Yeah, ain't really done that much the last 30, 40 years. And if you're black, they ain't done that much at all. And it's like, well, Obama did a lot of things with DACA and such and rights over here. I was like, yeah, but if you was black, you ain't hardly getting nothing. And the point again is like, be thoughtful. If we can be so thoughtful, or maybe not thoughtful, of looking at the president who just really should just be quiet sometimes. I wish the man would just get off of Twitter and not go ahead and respond to what the other side is doing, or not even responding in my daily life to my cousin. Like I saw so many people liking a video where a little boy was dancing to a song and it was just talking about getting some. And they like, oh my goodness. Well, no, we're worried about how the president's acting, which is definitely important, but we're not worried about our daily lives. We're not worried about how we're acting. We're not worried about how we're reacting. You're not worried about, did you just call me a house nigga, excuse my language, because I believe different from you. So you're going to monitor the president's actions where you're not willing to monitor your own actions or the actions of the people that represent you in your silly. And so, come on, people, come on, we got to wake up. It's so frustrating that I don't even want to say nothing online. I'll say something. If I say something, I say it and I just roll out, even sometimes in public. Not because I have no problem defending an issue. I'll defend it to the end of time, but I'm like, you know what? this is not going to produce a discussion, because most of the time the other person doesn't want a discussion. They want someone to mollycoddle them or whatever that is, where you just kind of go and make them feel good. Remember one of your first shows, I talked about a song by a group called Escape, and I said what black people want is they want someone to understand them. They want someone to hear them, and white people too. But I'm black, so I'm just going. I'm kind of more concerned over here. So we want to be heard, right? We want people to make us feel appreciated. Well, you know what? People are not, like you said, always going to appreciate you. You can't look to somebody else to define you. The minute you look to someone else to define you, you have no definition. You have no life. You are a shell.
You have no
right?
self.
You have no knowledge of self.
There's another clip. I believe it's I think it's Muhammad Ali.
Oh, I think I've seen that one too.
You seen that one too?
I think I know which one. Yeah. You been looking at my Facebook page?
No. Now, I'm thinking about all these things Malcolm said were said in the 60s.
Yeah, we fell asleep between the 60s and some other period of time. I don't know what happened. I was like, wait a minute. You know what? It's like this. Remember the Last Poets?
Yeah.
They said brothers are scared of revolution. They go on and say brothers will blank around and mess around and they'll chase this and they'll do that and they'll chase women, they'll chase ideas, they'll chase money. But they say brothers are scared of revolution.
Scared of revolution.
And so the point is, and I already wrote a blog on this. I'll publicize myself. I think, what is my blog called? I need to remember. I think it's Right Thoughts or something like that. But the whole
Right Thoughts?
Right Thoughts, because my last name is Wright.
Oh, well.
Anyway, well, it could be Wong, but I have Asian in my family, so that's not very. But the point of it is, before I lose my train of thought, was just that, which I already did, which was like basically we've lost something, and this the idea in terms of what Malcolm said is that we're afraid of revolution, and the true, like you said, the true ability to move forward lies within. So through enslavement, we realized that we had to push for it. We had to have our own institutions. We had to support each other. We had to internally, mentally, and spiritually understand that our direction came from within. Whereas somehow in the last 30 or 40 years, the direction has to come from somewhere else, right? And so we've lost our center, whether it be morally or intellectually or as a direction, is that and so many people don't understand or know your history. You don't know what Malcolm did or what King did. You don't know that they were coming towards like more of a nexus point when they died, even to some extent Bobby Kennedy. And you're a couple years older than me, so you remember some things that I might not remember, I might not have been alive for. But the point is that we've lost a lot of this.
It seems to me that they were heading to a convergence of sorts.
They were, but now the interesting thing is I don't know there was a great plan. I left work and some guy at work was talking about the Trilateral Commission. And I remember that from the 90s. And you have all these people on this commission theoretically and they control things, right? And I said, well, Frank, they don't necessarily need anything like a Trilateral Commission, because a lot of times people know how to press on a certain issue or say a certain thing, and they know they'll get a reaction from a given party. You don't need a highly organized system to manipulate people. You can look at something like the Blacklist show. It's a kind of an action show, and you see these little snippets of how people will use events and group psychology to control. And so the point is, Malcolm always said, do not trust the process, do not trust the system. There was some sense of self-direction. I'm not Nation of Islam, but I'll tell you one thing, is that when he talked in that respect, when he was telling truths that we simply don't want to acknowledge anymore. And the leadership that we have now, like I told the guy I talked to on Saturday, I said, man, people sometimes say I should run for something. I said, maybe I will. I said, but you know what you should do for people that don't do nothing for the community, Congress or whatever else, the local level? They trash. You throw trash away. But we're too emotionally attached to a given party or process to break ourselves away, to understand that we should not be so attached. We should not be so beholden to any party. We should be beholden to our community. We should be beholden to our values
and to each other,
our families,
and to each other.
And if you are, and you take exactly what Malcolm said, Congressional Black Caucus, go up to Donald Trump, go up to Barack Obama, and say these are our top 3 issues. Here's how we want to deal with them. Well, you tell me how you want to deal with them, and I want to see what you're going to do.
At least talk.
No, we talk.
No.
Play a spit good game, but they're not trying to do no work.
People like Congressional Black Caucus.
Congressional nothing.
They don't
caucus.
even talk.
Oh, they talk. They talk about reparations, and when I was in college, I used to think reparations sounded good. I know we've been oppressed, and I know that we've been enslaved. I know people have taken our jobs, housing policy from the 40s down to the current day, throughout Democratic, Republican administrations. I have a book I need to read on that. But the point of it is that you kind of lose sight of how to change things because you're so worried about one issue, you forget everything else that matters. Call me a fool. Call me whatever name you feel like you're going to call me. Like the lady at work today looked at me like I just robbed her and stole her children, was going to sell them into slavery. But you know what? Don't believe me. Go believe him, because you can disregard me and you can try to delegitimize what I say. But if I'm falling back on historical precedent, if I'm falling back on something one of our leaders said, one of our leaders who actually tried to do something, because leaders now, they talk about reparations. Yeah, but that'll bankrupt the whole damn country. So why the hell would you want reparations? Where are we going to go? We ain't got the country already bankrupt. You seriously going to bankrupt it? But look back at Malcolm. Look back at what King said, because even King, in some respects, you go listen to some of the things he said that's not on the public, that you don't usually listen to, and those are quite revolutionary for the time. And those are quite revolutionary for the day. And the difference between them people and the people today is the people today will smile in your face and go get a fat check. A fat check. Al Sharpton, Jesse, everybody, a fat check. What did King get? He ain't got no fat check. He got killed. What did Malcolm get? Malcolm never had no fat check. He was going to do what was right, even if it killed him, and it did. These fools won't do what is right unless they get money in their pockets. You can look at the local ones. You can look anywhere around, any city. And then we wonder why we're worried about Donald Trump. Well, fool, we've been getting shysted for like 40 years by everybody. And you worried about this one dude because he's immature? Like, really? Come on, man. And if you say that to him, there's somehow some kind of neophyte.
I've had, I'm going to have my pastor on one of my shows pretty soon. But we've been having run discussions for about a year or two. And I'm kind of learning, I'm trying to filter and decipher some things. It seems to me, I'll have him on the show, he'll be able to speak for himself. It seems to me, he says to me after a series of exchange, he says, Michael, I just don't understand how a man can think he's superior to another man because of the color of his skin. That's ignorance. Now, if a man is ignorant enough to believe that, why do I want to make that my problem? Why should his ignorance, why should I adopt that for my problem? Let him be stupid. Just let him be. And it seems to me, and we'll get it on the air, but it seems to me they're acting like a person doesn't have a right to be a racist. You can be a damn fool if you want to. You have a right.
Well, you can have a right, but what you said initially, if you change something by your interactions, you change them by the interaction with someone else, you change them by a discussion or a relationship with that person. So I think it is important, but like I said to someone today about police brutality, well, what if they're racist? Well, I can't necessarily change this fool being racist, right? But here's what I believe you should do about police brutality. And that point was simply demilitarize police. Shoot to kill should not be used in every situation. But the point was, let's not focus on what we cannot control. Focus on the items that you can control. And understand that in terms of someone's behavior, that's a decision that they may come based upon a circumstance or an arrangement or an experience or a relationship. So you have to put things, you understand, you're an attorney, you're trained to think in some kind of deductive reasoning. Kind of, okay, I'm really mad. The white guy drove up to me and started calling me the N-word. I got mad for about 10 seconds, right? And I got hopping mad. But you know what? I put the emotion aside and I went back to, do we need to call the police? Could you say something different, more intelligent? The whole point was I got mad like any other person. I did not stay in that emotion. I did not, and I'm not saying emotions are invalid. Oh, well, they treat us wrong. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know they treat us wrong. I've been stopped when there wasn't nobody around. I've driven through East Texas and just my woman and a dog, and we got the park police were looking at us. The sheriff was looking at us. I was starting wondering if I was a criminal. But the point was, you be in these situations where you can see some vestige of racism, or ignorance, but I'm not dwelling in that. I've been mistreated by different people. I don't dwell in that. And see, what's happening now is people, to the point of emotional manipulation, I forget the way you said it, is we're dwelling in these situations that we've experienced, as opposed to understanding we are not beholden to the situation lest we give into that ignorance, racism.
Well, there are simple things that we miss. For example, your emotions really can negate your thinking.
Exactly.
When you get mad, you say, I lost my head.
That's not
Think about what you're really saying.
That's not acceptable.
What you're saying is, I'm not thinking.
Yeah, that's not acceptable. And we do that all the time, every day, all day.
And what we need to do, individually and as a community, is to think. I put something up this morning. I posted something. I like to post stuff on Facebook and see what happens.
Yeah, I noticed.
And I put up this morning. Black Minds Matter. That's what Black Minds Matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was going on in the 60s. Because we were thinking.
Well, people still think, it's just not as prevalent. No, people think, or, it maybe not as much, or people care.
They're in the feelings now. I want to feel good.
Well, feelings are relevant, right? I'm actually a very sensitive man, right? Men are generally very sensitive, but I do not stay in the emotion of where I am, right? And so, people have to look at things in context. How my best friend's parents would help me and make me feel as a 15 or 13 or 14-year-old, that was very important. Now, in the positive context, that helped me move me forward to manhood when I didn't have a dad around. However, if I'm in the wrong environment, then that emotion can lead me down the wrong path. And that's sometimes what we're seeing now, is that you've gotten people that they're staying within that emotion. They're living in a negative context, something that's not producing value in their lives or value in the community. The only value that we're producing currently, by many of our discussions, it's an emotion. It will do nothing but expend energy. From an individual and a collective standpoint, it will expend energy. And so you have to refocus. And it's almost like if you're a psychologist, you would sit there and talk about, or a therapist, and talk about how the right pattern for behavior.
Let's see if we get one more clip up just before we go.
Okay, no problem.
We got 15 minutes.
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal. And white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress.
To others, he's a political leader, a figurehead in the battle between black and white, And yet to more people who care little about sport and even less about politics, he's one of the world's great entertainers, a character, a comedian, and a sometime poet. Here he is in all his splendor. Ladies and gentlemen, Muhammad Ali.
Black people must do something for themselves and not always beg white people to move in the neighborhoods, but clean their own neighborhoods. And another thing, when you say integration, it comes under intermarriage too, right? All
Right,
being together.
right, sure.
And I'm sure no intelligent white person watching this show, or no intelligent white man in his or her right white mind, want black boys and black girls marrying their white sons and daughters, and in return introducing their grandchildren as half-brown, kinky-haired black people.
I wouldn't object to that.
Well, you wouldn't, but a lot of them would.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people...
And
no, this is the point.
What I'm trying to say is this. You don't have it. You say you don't, but you don't have it. You really ain't going to have it. You're on the show, and you got to say that. But
that's not true.
why would you want to do that?
Because I don't think I'm any different from you see.
Yeah, we much different.
I mean, I think society's made us different.
You know we're different. We're all together.
But society's made us different.
No, not society. God made us different.
No, we're just human beings. He made all of us.
We all, listen, bluebirds fly with bluebirds, red birds want to be with red birds. Listen, tell me when I'm wrong. Pigeons want to be with pigeons.
But
tell
we
me
have
when I'm wrong.
intelligence.
We should have more. They don't have intelligence, but yet they stay together. We should have more intelligence than them, right? Buzzards are with buzzards. Yeah. Buzzards are with buzzards. Bluebirds are with bluebirds. They all are birds, but they got different cultures. The eagles like to hang out in the mountains. The buzzard like to fly around the desert.
Well,
the bluebird like to fly around the trees and the
There'd be certain
grass.
problems, a buzzard mating with a sparrow, wouldn't there?
What?
There'd be certain...
Right. And we have the problems too.
No,
I don't see no black and white couples in England or America walking around proud, holding their children.
That's because society...
And going out.
That's society's fault. I mean, we've got to educate people around it.
Well, life is too short for me to be raised catching hell for something like that. I'd rather go and be my own. I have a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife. They look like me. We're all happy, and I don't have no trouble. And, I have no trouble. I ain't that much in love with no woman to go through all that hell. Ain't no one woman that good. You understand?
I understand, yeah. I do understand. I understand. I think it's sad that
it ain't sad because I want my child to look like me. Every intelligent person wants his child to look like him. I'm sad because I want to blot out my race and lose my beautiful identity. Chinese love Chinese. They love the little slanted-eyed, pretty brown-skinned babies. Pakistanis love their culture. Jewish people love their culture. A lot of Catholics don't want to marry number Catholics. They want the religion to stay the same. Who want to spot up yourself and kill your race? You a hater of your people if you don't want to stay who you are. You shame what God made you. God didn't make no mistake when he made us all like we were.
I think that's a philosophy of despair.
Despair.
I really do.
It ain't no despair.
Number
one, can't no woman. Let me tell you something. I want to tell you. Listen, no woman on this whole earth, not even a black woman in Muslim countries, can please me and cook for me and socialize and talk to me like my American black woman. No woman, at last, is a white woman, can really identify with me and my feelings and the way I act and the way I talk. And you can't take no Chinese man and give him no Puerto Rican woman and holler about we in love and you emotionally in love and physically, but really they're not happy because she's gonna hear some Puerto Rican music, he's gonna hear some Chinese music, and they're gonna be clashing all the time. It's just nature. You can do what you want, but it's nature to want to be with your own. I want to be with my own. I love my people. That's all. I don't hate nobody.
You say you've seen that video before?
Yeah, I've seen that recently a couple times.
Well, I think that Muhammad Ali is just making the point of, in loving yourself, you don't have to hate or dislike anyone to like yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes there is an intermixing of people, but it happens in the context of loving yourself, as you said, and loving that other culture, wanting to learn or experience it. But when he talked, he mentioned, I couldn't hear at the beginning, but he mentioned some other things in regards to integration and support, like black women understanding him. And there is something different sometimes in a cultural experience. There's a song I always talk about it by the Jungle Brothers called Black Woman, and they talk about black woman, mother of my earth, black woman, you gave me birth. You can truly see what's in me. The point is, there's a cultural experience, there's a cultural understanding of love within the context of how you're raised, the culture and society that you're raised, potentially or hopefully. And so what he was talking about, some of it at least to me, was that love that you're talking about, that care that you're talking about, that actual respect that you're talking about, right? You know, and that's important to us. Malcolm talked about that quite a bit. Anybody now, I think, that is really understanding who we are is going to go back to almost like it's a Yoruba word, Sankofa, like going back into yourself, right? They will understand that. That's the most important thing about what he said, because that love, when it comes from us, when it came from us, when we exhibited that through the course of enslavement, and I would have been a house Negro because I'm light, and who knows, you could have been in or out because you know. But these are the things they did. But regardless of the color of my skin, regardless of the gap in my teeth, we loved ourselves, and that love is what powered us. It wasn't the white man's approval, it wasn't the brown man's approval, it was understanding who we were as people, who we were in our Creator. That's what empowered us. But if you tell them that now, they just like, what? We're talking about racist. Yeah, I know they're racist, some of them, but no, let's get back to what's going to make a change in our lives. Counting a racist is not going to make a change in my life. Saying the president's stupid is not going to change my life. What's going to change my life is how I see myself, how I treat my daughter, how I treat the woman that I love. That's what's going to change us. Not George Soros not taking a knee, not, you know, whatever. What is it that's going to make us feel good? I feel good. No. You know that I would. So that's not going to change nothing. The love that you're talking about, that's what's going to change stuff.
Well, it seems that we're just so distracted by and so enthralled with feeling good rather than doing good.
Whoa, feelings. But yeah, sorry. But yeah, very much. But if you know that, some of us, how do you change those of us who are languished in our feelings? This isn't to say that black people are the only ones that's walking around.
We can have a community exorcism.
Okay, well, I'm just going to tell the demon to go to hell on, because that's my authority through Christ. But people, it's not just that we're the only group that has this emotional attachment, but the effects of that attitude are different on us than maybe most other groups. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't realize that, well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, what? Shame on me. There's responsibility in the individual as well as in the collective in society.
I work very closely with conservatives in the Asian community. And Rob Muhammad was on, he told me he was keeping his eye on it. And the one thing I'm kind of discerning is a kind of a difference in priority and values. It seems that they're more family oriented and education oriented than are we. And I'm wondering if that's the beginning of trying to find an answer.
One of the white members of my church, I go to church with white and black people, oh my God, something's wrong. He pointed out, he and I were talking, and we were saying before in the 60s, obviously we were talking about solid black, nuclear black families, the education rate. These are things that existed. They're broken down in the last 30 or 40 years. Maybe the Asians have a better feel for it now, but the point is, these are things that existed. These are things that someone had value in, and these are things that we've walked away from. Not all of us, but a critical mass of us has walked away from it. And so I just want to say that I think we have it, but just because we were raised that way doesn't mean we live out that value. It's simply that's how we were trained. Most of us are not trained that way.
I'm going to have to begin to wrap it up here. It's been a pleasure again, Kennard, having you on the show. And I can't say I'm sure I'll have you back. I know I'm going to ask you, but you know how life is. But I think it's important to share what little we may or may not know with others, in the hopes of hopefully enlightening them and maybe even enlightening ourselves, because I believe that right talk leads to right thinking, and right thinking can lead to right action. At the bottom line, we want to end up doing the right thing, because I believe That's what's good for the black community is good for the community.
That makes sense. I know that's your slogan, but it actually makes sense. Heretofore, the truth.